I'd like to say hi to the new person sitting at the end of the table.
We would be happy to introduce
Please do that.
Anne Marie Dobson. She is our new Assistant Finance Director. She just started with us. And she has a
Pull
nice,
the microphone over.
sorry. And so she's just started in the finance department. And of course, if you haven't met Andrea Sustin, she is back with us as our Assistant Township Manager. So welcome to both.
Welcome, Anne Marie. Thank you. Okay. Who's doing the 5-year plan overview?
Ooh, I think that
Okay,
is-
we're going to start with an overview, which Stephanie's going to give.
So,
Give me just a second to get that on.
yep.
Ready.
Okay. So as we look out in the budget overview, the 2024 preliminary plan proposed achieves our 16.5% general fund balance in year 3. This conforms with our new fund balance policy, and all of our fund balances are adequate as well. The capital request, which we're going to go through this afternoon, kind of exceeds our ability to fund the reserves after 24 proposal. We're going to come forth with an idea to borrow the capital starting in 25. Also, some of the reserves, as we've talked about in past years, you may recall at these meetings, we actually went back to some of our other things, the need for an increase with the general fund operations, especially dealing with public safety, pensions, et cetera. And that'll be 25 and beyond. We did talk about that in 22 and 23 as we went through that process. So obviously, you know, we always know things change, revenues change as we go forward, but as we're taking the snapshot in time right now and working on this, this is what we're seeing. We want to share that with you. We want to have that dialogue with you. And at this time, I'm going to turn it over to Ken, I believe.
Yes, I'd like to have everybody get to the page, the 2024 preliminary budget capital financial overview. Everybody on that page? Wonderful. So this is a overview of the capital requests, and going from top to the bottom, as you see that we have a capital request for $18.5 million. So if you go down to the next line item, this is an indication that this would be funding that we would receive without the roads and bridges and the rec center projects. So that would be $5.8 million. So you drop down to the next row there, and then remainder would be $1.6 million. And what that $1.6 million represents is that it would be reserves that we would be using to pay for our capital projects in 2024. So the bottom line is that the remaining funding needed after use of reserves would be, as you see, 0. So as I said, it would be $5.8 million in capital projects, and the remainder would be $1.6 million, which would be we would be using reserves.
You want to talk about what's in the roads and bridges?
You need to use the microphone.
Well, okay, so in the roads and bridges is obviously the road program, and also the programs as far as our roads and our bridge culverts and repairs that we have budgeted for 2024. And also we have budgeted in 2024 our bike and hike trail maintenance and expenditures in there. So getting back to this sheet that I have here, and I wanted to walk everybody through from 24 to 28, just to show that the reserves are going to be reduced in the subsequent years. So our total requested capital expenditures in 2025 are $3.4 million. So the total without the roads and bridges and the community center ends up being $2.3 million. And the remainder that would need to be funded by reserves would be $1.7 million. Now, as you see on the bottom line, that we would have to borrow $1 million to fund the capital expenditures in 2025. So we would be using $700,000 of reserves and borrowing $1 million in 2025. And in the subsequent years, $2 million is our total requested capital projects, and the next line is $900,000. Remainder without revenue sources is $700,000. So as you see that we would have to borrow in 2026 $600,000 and use $100,000 of reserves. So the pattern here, like I said, is that we have shrinking reserves as far as our ableness to pay for our capital expenditures. So we would have to borrow $600,000 in 26, $400,000 in 27, and that would be a total of $2 million that we would have to borrow for our capital expenditures in these years, from 2024 to 2028. And also, just wanted to let everybody know that we received our official statement today for our borrowing, and our borrowing capacity is still at a little over $16 million. So that's just food for thought there, as far as everybody needs to know that that we still have a borrowing capacity of about $16 million. Any questions?
Yes.
Okay.
That 2 million borrowing over 5 years, is that just based on the capital projects that we are looking at today?
Yes.
Okay, so those numbers will go down based on what capital projects we do or not?
Correct.
Because that's the worst-case scenario you
Yes.
gave us. And we're going to be culling down those projects now?
Yes.
In this process?
Yes.
Okay.
And also, I'm sorry,
Yeah. Go ahead.
this is assuming a 16.5% unassigned fund balance, correct?
That's correct.
So depending upon results of operations, that amount may also change
Correct.
in the future, so.
Absolutely.
And we know historically, we've had better results at the end of each year than especially when you go out further into the third, fourth, fifth year.
That's correct.
Yeah, and if you've been around as long as I have, I've heard doomsday projections every year we do a budget, so.
Yeah,
just
and I
wanna
think
make
it's
sure.
important to note that one of the reasons the remaining funding needed for 2024 is at zero is because we were able to use the surplus from 2022. That $1 million is baked into the fund balance and is available for transfer for capital projects in 2024. So yeah, if we do better in 23, that pushes this thing up. This bubble has been moving for a while, but
Correct.
it's getting a lot closer. And if you look at the succession of numbers there, 1,600,000, 400,000, in 2 years, this predicts we're out of reserves. But if you also look at the top line, our projects collapse as you go out because our appetite is large in the short term, and we haven't thought so much about the long term. So projects will fill in. Perhaps we'll do better on operations, but I think this day is coming, and we've been talking about this now. This is the way we handled it last year. We put the borrowing in starting in 24, and now we're able to move it a year, but we still get the reserves to the point where we can't use them for capital anymore.
Can you break down the trails? So we have 30 miles. What did we end up spending, and like I know you had a meeting this morning. I'm just curious where we fell with that in terms of how many miles and what our budget projection looks like for that. I was just curious. I know we threw in like 25,000 last year to get it going, and it came in at 40, and it's just, I think you were trying to do a bigger assessment.
You're correct. We're probably a little over 30 miles that we maintain. Last year, we were going to do a section of trail.
Right.
That came in over budget based on what we had funded, and so we didn't do it.
Right.
So we rebid that this year, kind
Right.
of came in the same amount, but the base decided to move forward.
How many miles, did you do an assessment?
No.
I think I asked Dan, did you guys do an assessment of those 30-plus miles? Of how many miles need to be maintained?
No, we haven't done an assessment yet. Right now, we're like year over year on projects. So right now, we're working with the Public Works Superintendent, the Park Superintendent to determine, okay, we need to do work here. And we're looking at a
So we're
project,
just-
well, let me finish real quick, if you don't mind. Project by project basis, that's what we've been doing. Our plan is that for the next couple of years, we're going to increase the budget because we know what the costs are, because we have historical data now. But what we'd like to do is we'd like to do somewhat of a assessment like we did with the roads, is robotics, where we basically spend, we don't know the estimate yet. I've talked to Sean about trying to get an estimate to do that. We'd actually do the same idea on the trails. They're just small roads. They're paved
Well,
roads,
so-
but let me,
right, I've
so
just-
then to do an assessment so we know what we need to do, and then we'd build a program, but I don't want to not do projects, you know,
Oh,
and do
I
projects this
understand.
year coming up. So I'm thinking in '24, we would do an assessment to determine what is, like the road program, what is our need for repairs.
Okay, so-
And then from there, we develop a project and a funding and
Okay.
a cost year over year.
My understanding is there was a number of miles that was already identified that needed to be fixed. One,
It was, it was an assumption of approximately half of our trail system.
okay.
It was an
So-
assumption.
So roughly
These were all-
15 miles.
These were all assumptions.
Right, I understand,
Yes,
I understand.
correct.
And then the other question I had, and maybe Dan, you know, so these trails were put in, and I'm just using this as an example.
Mm-hmm.
The trails were put in, and they were varying widths, because this was before we really got heavy into all the DCNR. So when we're looking at them, specifically like in the capital expenses, right? Some of them are to widen them. If we don't widen them, does that save us any money? Is that something we can look at as well? I mean, I think that's sort of like the pushback sometimes you get from neighbors is they're like, well, we like the trail, but,
I don't think it's any intention from the Bike and Hike Committee to change the width of existing trails. You know, and we have
I thought I
ones
read
that
that
are
in
six,
some of them.
no,
We haven't had
6,
that
8, and
discussion.
10, we haven't had that discussion. And sometimes we have to neck down a trail to make it fit. It might be 10 and go to 6, but it depends on when they were developed. And, you know, we have had trails now for 30 years. And, you know, some of them where there's trees that are, you know, really kind of undermining trails, like people wanted trees planted, we probably planted them a little too close.
Yeah,
And so
we had that
may,
conversation.
you know, and now we know not to do that and with new trails, but like we did the Steeplechase Trail in, I think, '21. You know, that's pretty clear open. It's looks good where it's at and how it's laid out. We probably, if things go well and there's no real damage to it, you wouldn't need to be looking to do a repair there for probably 20 or 25 years.
right. I was just more
know,
curious about
There's others
sort
where
of the
we,
bigger
yeah.
plan of
And that's really the intent.
of the trails.
intent-
I know, because we talked about it.
Intent for '24 is to come up with a bigger plan, but we don't want to stop doing, our next target, which is really for '24, is the section of trail that runs along Kutz Elementary along Turk Road.
Yep.
From Rolling Hill Boulevard down the Eastern Road. Same idea, a lot of tree roots, it's rutted, we don't want to trip and fall. Okay,
That is
so-
also the oldest trail in
Correct.
Doylestown at about 30 years old.
Wow.
And
So
that-
we're
that
getting
was-
about
Right.
30 years of life out of them.
I know you're the trail expert, Dan, that's why I was asking you.
I dodge the tree roots there very often biking.
And
Right.
that's,
And it's a liability thing at the
Yes.
end of the day, that's why I was
Well, it's
asking.
part of the
Same thing.
reason why I wanted to interject that we've changed the funding for trail repairs, in that we have in the past carried them in the capital reserve fund, which has to be handled with transfers on a discrete basis year after year. We have moved that work into the Roads and Bridges Fund, which is funded principally by tax revenue. So once we treat it like a road, and we have a proper study of what the rate is, we should be able to fund a combination of roads, bridges, and trail repairs in a sensible, regular,
Right.
and sustainable way.
I appreciate that. Is that going to be fixed through Public Works? Would that be something you would hire out, just out of curiosity?
It would be hired out. I mean, we can't pave, we don't pave, but
Right.
we could do some, but ultimately it's contracted services as well, just like what we're doing this year.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted some clarification on that. Thank you.
Yep.
What's up next?
The capital summary sheet, which is pretty large, 11 by 17 report.
It's on the screen, but I think it's probably a lot easier if you have the paper copy to look at it.
Dan, Jen needs one too.
I believe we sent this out to everybody 2 weeks ago.
Yes, there is any
Hopefully
questions?
Everyone's had some chance to look at it, so
Okay.
we want to start with questions. Anyone's come back with questions?
So we can grind through this entire report.
All right. Anyone need one before you get some?
All right.
So I'll just cover 2024, okay? At the top is our road program. And we're budgeting out of the Roads and Bridges Fund, $626,000, and another $220,000 out of State Liquid Fuels. If you bring your eyes over to the right, the 5-year total out of for roads and bridges looks like about over $4 million that the township is going to be spending in the next 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years.
But importantly, so is yeah, okay. go ahead.
Did you change it? Because mine's different in my book. Did you change yours?
No,
I have 628 year-to-date and then ends at 5-year at 2.9.
yes, 2.9 is the 5-year plus another $1.1 million from the State Liquid Fuels.
Okay, thank you, sorry.
Yes, the combination of the
Two
two.
lines have to be added together.
Thank you.
Two funding sources.
Thank you, Mr. Tomko. Okay.
Thank you.
All right, then next, we have the roads and bridges crossing repairs that we're going to be budgeting $608,000 in 2024. And in the subsequent years, we'll have some maintenance of, between $125,000 for the out years. Next is the bike and hike trail maintenance. We had originally budgeted out of the off-site fund, and we had forecast for 2023 to spend $110,000. As you see in 2024, we moved it over to Fund 53 that Ed had it indicated, and we were budgeting $130,000 for next year, and in 25 and 26 and 27 and 28. So it looks like we've budgeted a little over $500,000 for bike and hike trail maintenance. Any questions? Okay,
Maintenance for current trails only, correct?
that's correct.
Or do we get any, because we are, the bike committee is combined with other townships, is there any other contributions? Are we covering all trails?
No, because each municipality maintains their own trail system.
I just want to make sure. they're
Yeah,
all
unless we
just-
do, this is our 30 miles in Doylestown Township that we
Okay.
deal with.
Just wanted to confirm.
No
Thank you.
problem.
Next is the police vehicles. We budgeted $127,000 in 2024 for police vehicles. I believe that is, what, 2 or 3 vehicles that we?
2 vehicles.
2 vehicles. That would be a purchase of the vehicle plus the outfitting. And then in the subsequent years, we budgeted 142, then 71 and $59,000.
2211.
Right.
Thank you.
a total of $500,000. Then the IT infrastructure, computers, we budgeted $31,000 for 2024. Any questions? Okay.
Can I go back, sorry? The trails, is that going to cover the roughly 15 potential miles? Do we have any idea what that's going to cover, that total, that 560?
130 doesn't cover 15. It'll
Well,
cover
the 560,
yes,
the 560, do you
yeah.
have any sense of, it's just a placeholder, basically?
Right now it is, yeah. Yes.
All right, okay, and then the upgrade for the computers, is that the sign-in programming? It's just regular upgrades?
This is hardware, regular routine. Units fail, have to be replaced.
Yeah, as this indicates here, it's for
Extreme.
upgrades.
Replacement of computer, yeah.
The next section is the Public Works roads. We have various projects going on with that, like the Green Light Go, the ADA, and they have various projects like I indicated. The first one out there is Green Light Go for $522,000, and then the other project for $349,000 and $110,000, $75,000, and those projects total almost $1.2 million. Now they are several of the projects are reimbursable, and we get reimbursed after the project's completed. Is that correct, Dave?
We can, we're allowed to invoice as the project goes along, and that's what we're going to start to do, especially with the Green Light Goes, to limit our carry of that funding.
Is it a percent? Or-
The Green Light Goes are 80/20. We are 20%, and PennDOT, that money is 80%. The Route 313 corridor is the 20% is split across 4 municipalities based on how we share intersections through that corridor.
Is that 80/20 just financial, or do we do like our services as far as like engineering and that type of thing?
That includes engineering, but it's 20% of the entire cost, including engineering, permitting, any inspections that's in there. And PennDOT has a standard formula when you do a Green Light Go app. They allow you to plug it. It's like you get 15% for, whatever it might be, like a certain percentage for a task, engineering, inspection, things like that. They don't let us plug numbers in. So they'll say 5% for inspection, something to that effect. So and that's how that's done. The problem we always face is escalation. We like any grant, you apply for a grant, you get it, how many years later, and then all of a sudden prices have gone up.
900.
And so we're going to try to see if we can, they'll allow us to count for any escalation in future grants that we apply for. Okay, so that's the Arley, which we have, it's not on here because it's being closed out this year. I'm assuming that's why it's not on here. Is completed. That's 100% reimbursable. We did go over budget because of costs. So we're going to get $380,817 back out of like a $450,000 project. That includes engineering and construction.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's the last one down.
Oh, it's
So-
the bottom one on the list in that section.
Of
Correct.
that section of projects, the township's going to, get reimbursed about $800,000 for those projects, so.
Thank you.
The Chapman Road Bridge, everybody likes to talk about the Chapman Road Bridge replacement. So we have budgeted $75,000 for 2024, because as everybody knows, it's on the TIP program, and those costs are for professional fees. Any questions? Okay, next down to the Public Works Parks. Dog Park entrance exit gate upgrade of $80,000 in 2024, and $60,000 in 25, and $50,000 in 26.
Didn't we just do those gates?
No, we did not do the gates.
It was on the list, right?
It was on the list, and what occurred was, in developing capital costs for this year, and speaking with Chris Mason, our park superintendent, he wanted to actually start looking at replacing the fencing. It's it's sold as the park, as the dog park, so how old is that? So and we looked at the cost and decided, well, why don't we kind of push it off
You can say that.
and create one capital. And now what we've done is, as you see, that's over 3 years. What we're going to do is the front gates plus one section of perimeter fencing, and then the next year is one section of perimeter fencing, section 2, and then section 3. So we're taking this project, which we really is estimated at, almost $200,000, and splitting up over 3 years. And that's just
Right,
maintenance.
I know it's expensive, and no one else is contributing, because it's,
No one else has contributed to the dog park since I think it's been started, as far as I'm
I'm just-
understanding, except for the fees that are collected.
I'm just asking.
There's no
The
other
fees,
maintenance.
Yeah, I mean, the fees.
Right,
cover
because I don't know what
yeah.
our numbers look like in terms of with the dog park. I'd be curious to see.
So, two questions on the dog park. Well, one's a comment. In the future, can we please, if we're going to be doing more than just the entrance and exit gates, can we just change this to the whole fence so that
Yeah.
we're clear about what that is?
Yeah, we didn't change the title, sorry.
No, it's future. And then for the dog park funds, is this coming out of the funds that the dog park group raises, or is this coming from our own funds to go to this?
That would
That's a good
theoretically,
question.
yes, that would theoretically come out of the dog park funds.
Okay, so their membership funds are paying for the upgrade for this, okay.
Okay, the
We
next,
would see it that way.
yes,
What did you say? I didn't hear you.
we would see it that way, that
Yeah,
the
it's always
dog,
been that way.
that the
All
dog
the
park
upgrades
funds
and all
would.
the repairs and stuff at the dog park and those new amenities were paid for by the fees that are charged.
Sure, and that's been my understanding. I just want to make sure that was continuing to be the case.
But there's still a difference what they bring in versus what we're going to be putting out, correct?
No.
No. We're covered.
They're 100% covered through their fees?
Yep,
Great,
there's
that's
a-
awesome.
Yeah.
Great.
It's coming out of
We have a lot of memberships rolling through that
So this
account.
is about $70,000 worth of projects, so
Yeah.
we're covered.
That's awesome. Great.
The next project is the Central Park New Britain Road parking improvements. It's a project to add 50 parking spots,
No,
90.
more than that,
90,
yeah.
sorry.
Might be more than that now. Where we at in number, count like 100 something?
Well, how much
112.
of this is wrapped up in the improvements?
None of it is.
I mean, none of this?
None of this is.
Okay.
This is.
This would be a new project, correct,
So,
Dave?
so one of the things is, I think parking was identified in the Park and Rec Master Plan. And the idea that we're losing during construction, well, number one, let's go back to, we're underparked in the park. We're seeing, let's just look at the concerts alone in the fact that, well, not even that, let's not look at concerts. It looks like on a weekly operation, I won't say daily, but weekly operation where you've got multiple fields being used and not enough parking spaces on New Britain Road or in Central Park alone, and that being the situation where people are parking in the grass as it is. Okay, that's number one. Then on top of that, now having concerts that are seeing an incredible amount of attendees, okay? And now that with the community recreation center going under construction, losing the parking lot out in front of the courts and the small lot adjacent to Field 1, we needed parking. So the idea was to, and again, it was in the master plan, so the idea, this idea, the sketch was developed when we actually had concept sketches for the Park and Rec Community Center at that location. We showed that parking expansion. The idea is that basically it's a multi-year project where we would have Public Works come in and actually, well, we'd have it designed and permitted, because that's what we have to do, okay, because there's going to be stormwater involved, all right? It's probably going to look at some modifications of the existing basin. And then we'd probably have Public Works come in and actually build or excavate and sub-base the parking lot, and it would be in some type of stone, like Turk, for some time until we could pave it, and I think we've moved that money out to further years. That's our plan. So we have additional parking in the park.
Thank you.
What's the distance from there to Central Park or the bathrooms, the courts?
I don't know what it has, a half mile, quarter mile,
Probably quarter.
yeah, about a quarter mile.
It's not,
to walk.
yeah, Hal and I walk that all the time. It's not.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not
I
bad.
like to
Yeah,
walk, I'm just
It's a quarter
curious.
mile. Yeah, through the
So
park.
we're not going to have I'm sorry, no parking by the courts? I thought we still had some court.
No, it gets expanded, right, Dave?
There's no.
When? Question is when?
The new ones?
The
During
new courts?
construction, we're not going to have parking out in that area.
Right, I understand, but I mean,
Oh, yeah.
after it's done. there's-
After it's done,
Yeah, okay,
correct.
okay. When you
Yes.
said that, I just wanted to clarify. Thank you.
So current overflow parking for that area is going up on the grass off Wells
No.
Road, correct?
No.
No?
Here's the other problem, is that as we started talking about community, the concert operations, the guys in Public Works, and we decided that we were not going to push people to the grass. Number one is that when the concerts are starting, people are still using the bike hike trails. So as we're bringing cars in and taking them down the what we, call the access road, which is the bike hike trail that parallels the top of the park, parallels to, we had people walking on the trail and cars on it. That's an accident waiting to happen, okay? That's a liability, in my opinion. Number two is that if you have, and you're parking people in the grass, and you don't have, lighting up there, and you don't have enough people, staff, to help people, I think that's also a liability. So we decided not to put people on the grass, okay? If we're going to do that, then we're probably talking about we need at least 6 to 8 people in Public Works every concert to park cars and help people get in and out of there. And so we're kind of looking at like, okay, let's expand the parking lot, have parking, which we need, and start it, and utilize that versus trying to, we can use staff too. We think that the parking lot is a good project.
What's the likelihood you'll have any additional parking spaces in 2024?
For this project is what I'd want to get started in the spring of '24 and build it and have those additional parking spots available for when we lose these parking spots here out by the courts, when the building starts.
So you think you'll have sufficient to make up for what we're losing?
Yeah, I'd like to have that ready by the concert, when the concerts start.
All right, sounds good.
So,
Will you have lights? And I mean, there's that whole safety going up the hill and up, and the other thing is the stormwater, because I know when we originally talked about putting the rec center up there, that was one of the issues, was all the stormwater, how, the engineering with all that.
Tony
was really-
costed it out with lights, paving, stormwater. So we would have planned to have lights up there in the future, but it's not going to be day one. So we're probably going to have temporary lighting, and we put temporary lighting out when we have the concerts now. Public Works staff puts out lighting for when we have the concerts. That's what we do now. We put temporary lighting out.
all the
So
way
when
up.
people leave the concert, they have to walk up there, they have lighting. But we don't have any lighting in the parking lot. Once they get to the parking lot, that's kind of like, that's it. So
There's-
eventually, our plan is to have lighting in that parking lot.
I would prefer to see the lighting in it from a safety perspective. I mean,
Well, it's a cost of getting, so if we're talking about costs, and we're trying to push things out, is we want to build a parking lot,
But
do
don't
the
you have
stormwater improvements, and then eventually bring that lighting in before we pave.
when you pave, but you're still gonna have to run the electrical and all that
Yeah.
there.
And that's a significant.
It's, for me,
amount.
it's just about the safety. As long as the chief's okay with it, I'm okay with it.
We can put temporary lighting and run
Chief's
temporary
hand is
lighting.
up. Yeah, that's my question. Yeah, I'm fine with that. I just make sure it's safe.
We need more parking regardless of whether you move the courts or don't move the courts. We need more parking on this complex. So we're talking about yes or no, we need it, yes, we need. Because the parks, when you have your concerts and you have people parking across the street in the middle of town, not crossing across roadways that are not yet ADA compliant, we need parking on the facility.
Yeah, I'm good. The lighting, that was really what I was concerned about, the safety. That's it.
Yeah, they have the ADA crossing that's there and everything now, but it doesn't go straight across, and a lot of the able-bodied people go straight across. And so part of our project here, we've been working with the traffic engineers to get that straight across done as well.
Thank you.
So-
Thank you for your efforts. That's a lot.
so, Dave, to clarify, for 2024, we're asking for 35,000. What is that getting us in 2024?
Engineering and permitting.
Okay, so we're not
stones.
actually going to be building anything until after the Parks and Rec Center is
Yeah,
completed?
because the
Now, we would-
project's going to be
Let
finished
me-
in 2025.
let me-
We would do it in-house and
Let
do
me
it in
explain.
stone,
Yes.
right, Dave?
Yeah, let me explain.
That's
Public-
what I want to understand, what we're paying for exactly in 2020.
The 30
If the argument's we need more parking while we're building this, and I'm hearing we're just getting design, what's happening exactly?
We have to design and permit it, as I say. That's our responsibility because it's a requirement. We have to design and permit it, and we have stormwater impacts we have to mitigate. After that's done, it's designed. Public Works is going to excavate and put in this stone subbase. So I liken this parking lot will be like Turk 3. You know Turk 3, how it's all stoned in?
Yep.
This is what this expanded parking lot will look like on both sides. And that's what it'll be until we have, I think, plugged in for whatever year for to actually have it be paved and actually do the actual lighting as well. That's the plan. So you got the 35,000 for engineering permitting, and then Public Works labor is Public Works labor.
So with putting stones in there, will we have,
No, we've
You-
got millings.
you mentioned a concern about having people with grass, having to have people up there to direct parking. Why would we have to have people up there to direct parking with stone since there'll be no paved? Or are we just gonna mark the stone as best we can?
We can have people park in the parking lot. I think with the staff that we have, we can park in there. A lot of times, we direct people to the parking lot and let them self-park. Okay? That's what we typically do.
Even with no markings or anything up there?
We can, yeah,
Correct,
again, we
there's no
can
markings
temporary
there
line it.
now either.
There's no lines in that lot at all.
That is
Okay.
paved, but it.
Okay,
there's no-
so it's kind of like get to the parking lot, we send people to the parking lot and let them self-park.
Okay.
Okay? And this alleviates them parking on the grass and everywhere and really,
Dave, when you talk about stone, are you referring to the millings?
yeah, we have
More
a,
than stone,
we got
more than
pile
like
of-
big
we have-
chunky stone, it's millings.
we have a pile of millings out back from our roads that we're gonna use.
Recycle.
Thank you.
Turn some heat on.
Recycled roads.
It's very cold in here.
Okay.
Thank you.
Is that in the budget to heat this meeting?
I think so. I think so. I think it's in the 2023.
Everybody's, all the ladies, we're all freezing, I know.
Either shivering or you're like
budgeted for heat?
Depends on
I
what you
wear,
want.
I wear sleeveless. Layers. That's layers are the way to go.
Okay, do we have any additional questions about that line item? Okay. None, moving on. Stain and Steel Parks Pavilion for $25,000 budgeted in 2024.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. And if you drift down to stormwater, the MS4 mitigation work that is coming due in 2024 at $1.6 million. And we're going to pay for that project using our ARPA money and reserves of about $700,000 to finish that project.
I'm sorry, what did you say was left from reserves for that?
600.
$600 to $700,000. Okay, we have an upgrade for a basin of $25,000. Any questions there? I'm sorry.
Where's the basin, out of curiosity?
Sheridan Road.
Yeah, I saw Sheridan, okay.
It's off of, there's a Wilkshire track off of
We'll try to track.
Edison Furlong Road.
And this is the engineering in '24 and construction in '25.
Thank you. On to the second page, trails. We have the Shady Retreat to Doyle Elementary, Safe Routes to School. And that's budget for $2.2 million. And that's going to be covered with the grant that we're going to be getting from the federal government.
Correct. We have a TASA grant. The bids are out right now. It's a 2.385 grant. So fingers crossed.
Yes, and hopefully the funding will be that we'll get the invoices and then we'll submit them to the paying entity and then we'll get money from the paying entity and then pay the contractor. There won't be any money fronted from the township.
That's the same way we did Lower State Road.
Yes, yeah, that was awesome. Wells Road Trail improvements for $70,000. Doylestown Country Club Trail for $50,000. And then the New Britain Road Trail, Central Park,
Central Park in the back of Warwick.
yes, for $43,000. So, go ahead.
The new services, this is just being proposed. This is not, we don't have a grant, we have nothing.
We have a grant for the New Britain Road Trail. We do have a grant in hand for that. That is a DCD grant. And so construction, we're continuing the final design and construction in, probably put it out sometime in late '24 for '25 construction, because we have that grant.
The New Britain Tabor steeplechase,
That is an application that is pending right now.
'cause it got
with-
denied the first time,
TASA,
right?
correct.
Did I read that? Mm-hmm. Can we push that off just because?
Well, right now, the application's already in, so it's just pending. We don't know if we'll get it again. So we didn't get it last time.
So if we don't
we'll
get the
just-
grant, it would be pushed off.
I'm
It
just
would
trying to
be
figure out
pushed
how to
off.
cut
Yeah.
some dollars, that's all.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And
It's a lot.
the other two are just really engineering at this point in time. While the Wells Road one is, Dave, is that more construction? Because we'll be doing that. That's
Yes.
to address the Windsor Way and everything, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
correct.
Why is the Wells Road Trail broken out from the rest of the trail improvements specifically?
It's a separate, we just have it down as a separate project. That's really what it is. It's actually the crosswalk. See, it's the crosswalk from Windsor into the park.
So
And we just have
it's
it as a
more,
separate capital.
we're not so much working on the trail itself as the crossing, sorry.
Correct.
The crossings and that kind of,
Yes.
okay.
Well, Dave does believe that the trail's going to have to be adjusted when you come straight across and to be able to meet the grades and everything. So that's probably why he added it as a trail, not just the
Okay, so
cross-
there'll be some
crosswalk.
minor work to the trail, but we're not talking about like repaving the entire trail, reworking the
No,
entire trail?
correct.
Okay.
The other thing is they brought up concerns about the trail and access to the rec center at our special meeting. So should we be thinking about that, like coming up Turk and coming around? Did you guys talk about that at all?
That did not come up in our normal conversations today. And I believe we talked, that meeting was talking about specifically like sidewalks and that kind of thing, which I do think should be considered, but we haven't discussed that in Bike and Hike yet.
I just didn't know if we have to be concerned again of any safety issues coming up. Once all this construction happens, you know, when you build it, they will come. You're going to have, you know,
Well, I mean, there has always been a plan to have bike hike trail from Turk Road along Wells into Central Park, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah,
At
it's
some
just,
point, yeah.
at some point, so
I
it
mean-
just hasn't been.
I mean, we can't come down the hill, that's why like Rolling Hill and all that goes through the backside of Central Park and connects that way.
Right,
Because you
right,
don't
right,
want
right.
anybody to come down the
a
hill,
little
but
safer, yeah.
coming on like Turk from the other end and up, I mean, that is something we will need to be kind of looking at from an engineering standpoint. We can certainly
Because if
start
we're,
to get some ideas.
you know, if we're not committed to that grant for the Tabor steeplechase, I'd rather see it go towards the safety of coming here. I think it'll reach probably more people. That's just,
Well, there are two issues with that. I get why you're saying that, but the Tabor steeplechase one, we have the easements already in place. Anything going up Turk Road and Wells Road, we'd have to address easement issues, which would take significant time and cost to handle
they're
that.
going to be riding along 611, correct?
For the steeplechase
Yeah.
piece?
The
Yeah.
Southeastern Road.
Yeah.
Southeastern Road.
Southeastern
Just-
Road.
No,
which
it
is-
would cross the bridge, and then we would, we have a lot of right-of-way there, and we would create a whole path along there and then tie into the path that's at Tabor now.
Right.
So
I
it makes
was
that
just-
connection, and then it gets you right to Central Park. So all the residents in Doylestown Hunt would be able to walk or cycle to Central Park,
Yeah, and
you know, if we get the grant. I mean,
I'm just looking at money, that's all.
Oh,
Sure, sure.
And-
Yeah.
And,
I mean-
and Turk Road and Wells, I get it, but we do try and Bike and Hike to make sure we have easements locked down before we go out for grants and that kind of thing, because that can be the biggest thing to hold up a project.
yeah.
I
think-
defer that to you, Dan, I just was asking.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think one of the things the bike hike could do with our bike hike consultant, because we do have money set aside for him to kind of just do a snapshot. What would it look like? Where would you start? Where would you end? You know, what's the right of way along Turk Road, Wells Road? We could do that as just in maybe this year, next, just have Chris start to look at what's it going to take and ballpark a project and what grant would be the more appropriate one, and we can
Right.
look at that for
And then,
future years.
I mean, honestly, like, I see these, but the new ones, if we know we have this, we just forgot that on the first page, we have a lot of maintenance to do. So it's like, I appreciate all the easements, but like, should we be like, you know, maybe pulling back a little bit until we can get, you know, our current affairs in place? So
That is something, when we get to later, I do want to talk about our scope of the trail project, or trail maintenance and that kind of thing. I don't have a direct answer for you right now, because I want to give them time to get through everything before
Yeah,
we get into that
just,
more.
that's a sort of a 30-mile view, but yeah,
Yeah.
it's a big deal.
Okay, moving on to vehicles. We have a vehicle.
Hang on a second.
Up.
We have a question here.
I just wanted to ask a question about.
Should he be on the microphone? Please, thank you.
Yeah, but turn on.
Be on the microphone there. Bob, thanks.
Bob Salnick, and I live at 206 Pebble Ridge Road. I was just curious in looking at all these trails. At one point in time, there was supposed to be a trail that ran from Turk Road through Turk Park, across 611 to tie in the trail system down at Warrington Country Club. And part of that was with Bucks County.
Yes.
Still is.
But I'm wondering what happened to that.
Yeah. The Neshaminy Greenway.
Neshaminy
yeah.
Greenway,
So
yeah.
that's still being discussed. This morning in our bike and hike meeting, we had our representative from the county planning office. They are waiting on Boucher and James to get additional information on that. You're right, Bob, that they've been talking about doing that maybe 2 years
2014.
now. Well, for a while, but like they've been like, oh, we're going to get construction soon, and it's just being pushed off. But
Yeah.
Construction will be completed in 2023.
I know.
The county,
Does the township have any responsibility?
no,
No,
that is
it-
completely a county project, and kind of to add what Dan was saying, county project, grant funded, state funded from for the county. The county's been working with a local engineer to get those plans prepared and go through PennDOT, and they've had a lot of kind of back and forth on the plans with PennDOT revisions, requirements, and they're waiting on the next kind of revision, so.
But hopefully it's coming.
Can you just keep us updated on that, Dan or Stephanie, just?
When there's info, sure.
An update to be
Yep.
updated on, unfortunately.
Okay, moving along here.
Yes, we have a vehicle request, a shared utility vehicle for 2024, and it's $36,000. We would be getting rid of the 2006 sport utility vehicle, that it's coming to its end.
Okay, moving on.
Yep. Upgrade to the financial software. That's our initiative in finance to start our search to replace our ERP in 2024, 2025. The $65,000 is a place marker. We're going to be starting to search for those, for this software, like I said, in the spring. We do have a demo with NetSuite, Oracle, on October 27th. So that will be sort of kicking off the search for the new software.
Can I go back? You had the fire marshal truck as beneficial. Is that something? Is there 63,000?
Yes. Yes, we budgeted that for 2020, let's see.
That's three. That's a 2023 project?
Yes, and it was a 2022 CapEx form.
It's on order, I believe.
Yes, it's still on,
ordered.
yes.
Is that
it's-
the one that's been sitting and it keeps getting pushed back because of?
Supply. It
Fine,
hasn't,
okay.
it hasn't
Yeah.
come in
All right,
yet.
that's what I thought.
Yeah,
Okay. that's
it
what I
hasn't
thought.
come in yet.
Thank you. I just
Everybody
want to clarify.
remembers
It's because it
our,
said beneficial. I just wanted to be.
Our
clear.
parks vehicle that we ordered in January 20 came in late 22, I believe.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. I thought I remembered that. Okay,
Yeah.
Thanks.
Firearms replacement for the police department, $17,000 for budgeted for 2024. And then we have the park improvements project for $10,945,000. And
One below it.
the public, yes, we have, yes, I was getting to that. The Public Works Building, maintenance. We have that budgeted for $335,000 in 2024. Do I hear any questions?
Where are we with the community rec, with the contracts for that? For the project?
The
of
ones
con-
that were approved last week?
Where the bids went out, and where were
Bids
the
were approved.
contracts?
Bids were approved, contracts are being prepared, drafts, they're using the, I guess what they call it, Dave, the AIA. Contracts and that information has been sent to the solicitor for review.
And then
Once they come in, the
come
appropriate officers will execute them.
they won't come back through to the board?
No, typically once the board approves a bid, and this is traditional, when the board approves the bids, then the contract's automatically signed when the contract arrives. We do that for our road programs, all of our other contracts that we do.
Well, I would just like to say, I've voiced my concern at the last meeting, to many dismay, but I think the part that I'm concerned about, and the part that I would ask about, is that, when it was presented through Quadrifoil, and I appreciate everything everyone's done, is that we voted for those bids to be awarded with the assumption of a $1.5 million already raised fundraising, as well as we didn't include what our debt service was going to be. And I really feel like we should have had all that information in front of us when the bids were put out. And we were presented with, it could potentially be, average of $96 a family.
93.
Or a household.
A little over
So I would just say that, there's a piece to that puzzle that I understand that the bids were awarded. However, until the contracts are signed, I think there's still some room to sort of look at that, because, when we look, and can you confirm the information that Mr. Delicott had sent the board? I don't know if Park and Rec or anyone else had seen it, that, if we assume a $1.5 million fundraising, we're at a $535,052 debt service every year, annually. And if we only get to 250, we're at like 624. So we're losing that money every year. Is that somewhere in this budget?
Let's answer the first question. Mr. Delicott's information is essentially correct.
Okay, that was
He has some small differences in some of the
Right.
numbers, but nothing material.
right. How long is the bond for? Let me go back there. How long?
25 years.
It's 25 years, then what was the?
And we have always carried the debt service separate from operations for the last 3 years. We have absorbed, we've never, ever
Okay.
in this project tried to
So,
cover that.
where do we draw the line as a board if we're saying, okay, we're going to be losing or having to compensate out of our budget somewhere between $535,000 and $625,000 every year? That will come out. So that comes out of all of our CapEx programs. Everything that you're requesting to do, that's got to be paid out first. So I'm just, I felt like that was a little bit, it was negated when it was presented by Quadrifoil. So I'm not comfortable with that number, and I felt like it should have been presented as part of the presentation at the special meeting.
It was.
The debt
Yes.
service of how much we're going to be losing.
Debt services was presented at the
So-
special meeting. I think I even moved the model a couple times to show what the differences were, so, yes.
So,
This information
so this board
has
is
been in the
comfortable
public
with
for
losing,
years.
Wait, well, only one person at a time, because we're being recorded.
This information has been out, maybe not precisely the same because the
Right.
interest rates have changed, but in fact, this information has been out for 2 or 3 years.
well, I'm talking specifically at that meeting, it was told to the people that were there, it's like roughly $96 a household,
94.
94. But that's also with the assumption of $1.5 million. Do we have a total dollar amount in?
We're not doing this, we're gonna move on, because you're gonna continue asking, you know
Right,
exactly where we are, we're at around roughly $250,000.
No,
And the goal is to hit 1.5. That has been articulated and commented.
I'm going to
numerous
ask,
times. That's
I'm
where we are.
asking Ken to tell me, could you tell me exactly how much is in the account that's been
He
collected to date?
cannot.
Well, who can
It's
tell me?
pledged money, it's pledged
I didn't
money.
ask you, Ryan, are you?
I'm answering you, it's pledged money, I know the answer, it's pledged
Well,
money
I-
at $250,000 with a $1.5 million goal.
Okay, so we
And we
should be
just have
looking at the
around
250
1.7
number
in
then.
grant money.
I just want to be clear where, because what we presented and then where we're at now is that
Right,
snapshot.
that's how fundraising works. You have to continue fundraising.
I
So where we are
I am
now,
very
we have a
clear.
percentage of
I
our
am not
goals.
going to be bullied, Ryan.
You're not being bullied,
Well, let me
you're
finish,
actually
let me
harassing
finish my statement. Thank you very much. So we are at the 250 number. So we are roughly, our debt service is going to be $625,000 a year. That is what we are agreeing to as a board. I'm not agreeing for it because and I will say for a fact,
What are we doing?
so what,
We're taking the vote. We voted. Yes, that's what we agreed to. We have made the vote.
okay, well, just want to be,
Yes, you've clarified. Moving on.
so you know what? I need to stop. We need civil discourse. I ask the chair to please, it's an opportunity to talk about it.
When you're asking questions that you already know the answer to.
You know,
And
Ryan?
exactly what you're doing.
What we need to do is have
Excuse
one
me.
person talk at a
I need you to let me finish. You can say what you want to say. I'm going to express the way I need to express it. Because, you know what? In 2017, Ryan, we'll just go there. You tabled the rec center because you said unless it was publicly funded. So you tabled it. And then, so you want to go there? We will go there. So I'm finishing. So in 2017, you tabled it. Then excuse me?
I said you're unbelievable.
Well, you
know
need
what?
to take it down, because I want to state what I want to say, so I can have peace of mind that I represented the people that are upset about it. And then I will let it be, because you have a 4-to-1 vote, and you're going to spend the money the way you spend it. But I'm going to put it out there. In 2017, Ryan, you voted to take it down and to not do it because it wasn't publicly funded. When we did the feasibilities, well, and wait, I'm not done yet. And then when we did the feasibility study, it was stated in multiple supervisors, it had to be sustainable. What happened since then? We've had a COVID, we've had a pandemic, we have interest rates at 40, the 40-year high, and we have this crazy number that we're going to be carrying. I mean, it's irresponsible. That's my point. And my point is, before we sign those contracts, we still have a chance to make this right. This is a corrosive experience. And I asked, our director of finance, if you are going to invest your money, is this a good decision to make? Would you invest?
Excuse me, Nancy, that's an unfair question. Ask this public servant who's guided and directed by the board.
Well,
Please.
we asked them for their
Please,
guidance of
Nancy.
what smart way to spend things or not spend things. You're giving us guidance in terms of we should be doing this, we shouldn't be doing that. And I'm saying, is this a smart financial decision to
Nancy.
put on our taxpayers?
You're asking the director of finance a question that he has to follow the direction of the board. You don't ask him a personal question about his responsible or irresponsible actions.
I don't really think this is a personal, I think this is his expertise.
Excuse me. I didn't interrupt you. Please don't interrupt.
I apologize.
Thank you. The board voted to build this thing. The board voted awarding the contracts. We're proceeding. Now, you have issues with it. We understand that. You've had your piece for the last 6 or 10 meetings. But we voted. So I really would like us to move along with the budget things in front of us and get through them and not have to revisit, go back and regurgitate what's already been decided, what's already been said. Okay? Thank you. Moving on.
So that's what we have at the end of this, these two sheets here is $18.495 million for capital expenditures in 2024. Is there any additional questions?
Now, do you want to hear from us at this point, culling down the projects that we think are not necessary, or do we have time between now and some other date, the next meeting, or did you want us to do that today? Do you understand?
Theoretically, we don't have another meeting, so yes,
Yes.
we need to hear from you
The
now.
answer to your question is yes.
Okay, thank you. All right. Well, anything beneficial, I say let's move off to the side.
Except for the security cameras, I would put the Kids Castle.
Well, that's already, probably in the mix with the big
right.
improvement program.
It's set under,
It's already in the mix with the big
It's-
improvement program.
That's in 23.
Yeah,
Yes, well, there was
So-
something 23 that's
So
beneficial and
that's
already in the capital.
already in it.
it's alady.
I'm just
been
making
done.
sure.
So,
Okay.
Yeah, it's already done.
Okay.
I'm talking about
Confused.
beneficials going.
24 forward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So understand that the budget that we have has got all of the items that Ken just went through in 2024 covered, and we have funded it using reserves, so everything that's in here can be, in fact, covered
That's
with
correct.
the budget that you're about to receive. Our issues are in the later years when we'll have to borrow. And though that's not a technique, that's the same technique we had last year. And it could be more or less.
We have the reserves in place to pay for our capital expenditures in 2024.
Is there anything we can do with these trails?
That's the first thing I was looking at.
I mean,
Because I do think, and this is, I think it's worth having further discussion on going forward next year. Obviously, we do want to do, I think Shady Retreat and Kutz are two good examples of what to do right now. And this is me personally from riding the trails, so like open to discussion. I don't think off the top of my head there are any other trails I would really mark as like immediate concerns that we have to address. I'd like to talk more about with the Bike and Hike Committee about that and do our own research into it. But I don't know if we need to be putting 100,000 a year into this as opposed to maybe 50 each year.
I'll interject because the trail that we just awarded, and Sean, correct me on at least the amount. I mean, I apologize, I don't know the length. It's not that long of a section of trail, and it's going to cost us $110,000.
Right.
And I understand, so we've the CapEx for Kutz, that's 1,000 feet right there. So from Rolling Hill Boulevard to Easton Road is 1,000 feet, and we're estimating about 130. That includes a couple ADA ramps and rebuild that trail. So it's not, if you want to call it down, know that it's like a road program. Instead of doing 1,000 feet, we might only do 500. So I just want everybody to realize that if we have things to address potential that are liability, and I think we should look at a program and work with Bike and Hike and try to talk about how we want to develop a program. Just know that if the money comes down, then the amount of work we can do comes down. That's obvious, I guess. Maybe I'm stating the obvious, but still, same point in time, deferred maintenance means further problems down the road. And so maybe that's like, we got to look at the critical areas, so.
Right, and
Yeah.
and like I said, my view is from my experience riding the trails, and
Yeah.
I ride them a lot, but I don't ride all of them consistently. And I lean toward, me personally, of doing a section of trail every 2 years instead of every year. And
So let me
we
also go
can get
back
away
to
with that.
what my staff said. Park superintendent saying we need to do more. Our facilities manager, who actually does a lot of the maintenance, the winter maintenance on them and is running those trails, says in his head about half of them really need attention. So it's again, I keep saying if we create the monster, we have to feed it. You know, if we've got this thing, we have it. You have to maintain it. So I just want everybody to realize that if we defer this, potentially costs go up, and it just gets worse. It's just like the road program.
Sure, but there's less wear on a trail than there is on a road, so I feel like you can get away with deferring.
Guys
a
are
bit more
telling,
on
so
the
I
trail.
think we need to be very diligent in '24 to really look at the roads. Again, if we can get a proposal and bring it to the board to do a robotic survey and get a real good objective view of the trails, then we can kind of come up with, just like we do with the road program.
Right.
We can come up with where are those areas, maybe they're small areas that we need to do instead of just.
And I understand
more
that.
conservative.
I'm saying this is from my experience. I'm not saying it is
on
purely
them more than I am.
objective.
and I think the 26 and 27 end projects, the ones that should be put on, like sort of tabled until we can feed the monster and fix what we have.
Well, I mean,
I appreciate like all the easements, but like we're playing catch up right now with our trails. And like you said, there's a safety issue. And Stephanie talked about the routes. And so before we keep adding, I think we need to fix what we have.
So just to let you know, Nancy, when it comes to the outer years, we're only going to be voting on 24, right?
Exactly.
So when we're looking at 25 and 26 and beyond, it's really just, it's actually been incredibly over conservative. Like we've been very, but it's there to keep those projects in mind. It's not, we're not committing to anything beyond 24.
I know, but we also, once we commit to it, we're then also committing to the maintenance of it.
We-
So and that's the
we don't-
part that we have shortchanged the program, and this is where we're playing
Are
catch-up
we still
now.
talking about trails, are we still talking about trails in that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
there, two things I do want to.
Philosophical, what are we gonna do?
Two things I do just want to point out about the trail maintenance is, one, we have gone by with like 20, 30 years, so like when we put new trails in, it's going to be a while before they come up on the maintenance.
But it's
Other
all the
than, like,
engineering,
snowing.
right? So when we get a,
Well, that's what we've done, we've approved a lot of these for the engineering already. The design and engineering grants, we voted on that, and that's part of what we have to submit to get these grants as part of.
so I guess, so maybe we back up, and I'm asking, we need a process where instead of being like, here it is, we want the engineering for this, that we can see sort of that bigger picture, because we keep adding, and listen, everybody loves the trails of Doylestown.
I
but
understand there.
But
Yeah,
you know what I'm trying to say
the-
is we
The
need
bike and
a,
hike is very much like build, and I understand that, and most of that comes from grants, but I understand that we do have to consider the maintenance stuff. One thing I do want to point about maintenance real quick, about the trees and all that, is some of the trees damage has been because of, I don't want to say poor decision, but uninformed decisions we made about what trees to plant by the trail. And we've changed that process. Like you have trees that grow out and you have trees that grow down.
Right, and you're going through the branches
So we're
and-
we've made those adjustments with our new trails going forward.
I understand,
as
but
part of that.
no trail is free. So if you're getting a grant, maybe you're paying for the engineering, or it's matching. So, and then we still have that second piece of it, right, which is the maintenance piece. So my point is, like, I'd like to see something more holistic in the way we approach the trails and the maintenance.
But one of the things, and we're spending a lot of time on a
Yeah, I
relatively
just- yeah.
small amount of money. I mean, we've blown completely by the $2.2 million amount, and we're focusing on really small amounts. I want to reemphasize what's been said. We're focusing on the 2024 budget, and every year there are projects that aren't able to be completed for whatever reason, so they are extended into the future.
I understand.
I think we're kind of maybe.
It's more, and this probably isn't
You're
the place-
talking about a process.
Exactly.
And this isn't really a process meeting. We're trying to nail things down because administration, and I've been in this position, so pencils down at the end of October 30th, unless there's a change that I'm not aware of. So if we could,
And I agree, and I appreciate that, Brenda. You are correct. I am looking for a process. I'd like to
and I
see
think
that,
they could go
Dan,
back to
Yeah, no,
committee.
I
So
understand.
that because what happens is then we're committed to either the maintenance or the engineering, and we're pushed forward. So I appreciate that, Dan, if you could help
Yeah, no, I understand.
foster that.
Brenda, you're right. I'm looking at the 5-year number more than I should be looking at the 2024 number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing me back.
All right, you good? All right, so now we're at the point where we have to, if there's anything that is on the list to be done in 2024, that is budget for 2024, and you think it should not be in there for whatever reason, I'm asking that we single out the beneficial, that might help lift the bottom line for 2024. Some of
Really
the
isn't
beneficial is
much.
2026, I see that. But some of it's carried over from 2023.
Right.
We addressed that.
Well, there will always be some carryover, yes.
Right.
We're
So-
not even seeing that yet.
So I'm not sure what here is to be cut out. frankly.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty clean.
The only two pieces I could see that we have marked as beneficial, are the fire marshal truck, that's 2023. Or it's the parking for Central Park, and we were kind of committing to the trails, which we have as maintenance, but we're discussing that as if we want to put, which I think we probably should for that. So that really kind of leaves us one option for beneficial for
Right.
2024.
Yeah, there isn't much.
So just to clarify the parking at New Britain Road and the dog park, or no, I guess New Britain Road parking, the $35,000 we have in '24, that's for the engineering. I know we talked about this, but the one part I wasn't sure was talking about having parking there in '24. Does, you
Correct.
said it will be there in '24, right? But it won't be paved.
Correct.
In '25 that's the larger expense to pave it and all that.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So 24, it'll be like Turk 3.
Okay.
Like, just, you know, you can still park there.
All right.
We call it pervious.
So it'll be usable.
Yeah, still pervious. That's why we've just.
Correct. It'll be functional in '24. I'd like to do it before the concert starts.
Okay.
So to take a bit of a step back to the beginning,
No rain.
we're okay in 2024 as far as the general fund goes. Our real concerns are the next 2 years, but we don't want to really discuss those too much right now. We just want to look at
Well,
anything we
no,
can cut.
they present a perspective. I mean,
But right now, we're discussing if there's anything that we can cut
You're
for
committing on
2024
24.
to benefit us going forward.
Yes, that's right.
Right.
And we're all looking at it and saying no.
And if you also go back, if I could, to what Ken started with, on or actually Stephanie, on the 2024 preliminary budget, you know, looking at the total amount of $18.5 million and the 5.5, how it all works out for next year. And it's been acknowledged that there's going to be positive variances, and so there's just an awful lot that can change during
Yes.
the rest of 2023 and 2024. So those,
It happens all
next
the
year,
time.
next year at this time, we will be having conversation probably about some of the same items.
And when you reconcile 23 to 24 and 24 to 25, there's all kinds of things that drop. Oh, God, yes, we also times make more money.
Get bluebirds.
Yeah, you-
Sure,
so,
absolutely.
and this team has always been super conservative to the point where sometimes I want to go home and cry, but it always works out to the benefit of the township.
Brenda always says that, too. We're very
Brenda.
conservative. And Bob used to say that, too.
Does this include the revenue from the sale of Pine Run, and when you talked about some of those extra funds, all that?
Sale of Pine Run is, we've received that $344,000 in transfer taxes
Right,
already.
and then we had the surplus, and what else to make us feel better?
Well, there's still the Grasso development out there in
Oh,
the
that's
future,
right.
but that's not quite there yet.
It's not going anywhere fast. It's been around
Yeah.
for about 12
Yeah.
years.
I know.
now.
And then Whole
like to drink.
Foods, maybe?
To
and
pick
may-
up a little steam.
Whole Foods is not, I don't think we'll be getting a ton of revenue off of
And what
Whole
about the
Foods.
crisis,
a
the
fit-up
crisis
for
center,
Crisis
maybe?
Center,
Crisis
if
center.
Could
the
we
county
finish up
moves
the
forward.
capital part first? We're going to get into revenue.
We're going to
in a
get into
minute.
revenue, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Are we-
Yes.
So.
We want to
at
make
this-
it better, Ed.
At this point, the capital is presented for 24 remains as is.
I think so. Yep.
Yep, okay.
Yep. Is everyone in agreement there? Anybody disagree?
I don't like the number, but,
Unless we can get out MS4
Yeah.
stuff,
I mean,
but
I'm talking about moving forward with the 20.
yeah, I don't know what can cut out.
Capital.
Capital expenses for 2024. Everyone's okay? Okay. Thank you, Ken.
You're welcome.
Okay, who's up next? Let's talk about money coming in. Is that you, Ed?
Revenues.
Tax operations.
We gonna,
Yes, let's go with the revenue highlights.
let's hand this out, I guess. There's a package that's coming out now, which is the traditional operations package with 8 pages of revenue, or 1 page of revenue, 7 pages of different expense groupings. It's the same report you've seen for some time, except this does have, this one still has the 5 years, doesn't it? Or, no, it's down to 3. Did I cut it back?
This is the one I have.
So this one still shows that we developed this whole thing out for 5 years. We are measuring ourselves as we go on a 3-year basis, and we will show you some of that in a minute. But let's start with a summary of what this package is going to try to tell you. Are you going to handle revenue, or do you want me to?
Go ahead.
All right. Most important element of revenue is earned income tax. And as I think I heard someone say, we always forecast this rather conservatively. Maybe I've heard multiple people say that. This forecast is not quite that conservative. We're using figures that are more like what we've learned in the study that we discussed in our July meeting or April meeting. And so we're using 2% as the forecast growth rate into the future. We've taken a look at the money that's coming in this year. We've used our 7 years of history to look at what that predicts for the end of the year, and we are on track to reach $5.4 million this year. And as you can see, we budgeted 5.2, so we've gone considerably better than budget this year. We are expecting a surplus on that line this year. We forecast 24 to be up 2% to 5.5 million, and that same forecast carried across the 5 years gets us to about $6 million when you get out into 2028. That's the story there. It may still be conservative, but it's less conservative than it has been. That's the first and biggest element. The next element down is real estate tax receipts. The way I've got it listed here, where it talks about the dollars, is perhaps the hardest way to understand it, but the next page will hopefully give you a little more benefit of that. But basically, in 24, we're calling real estate tax receipts up for debt service, $600,000, and we are tweaking roads and bridges repair up on a one-time basis in 24 because we have a heavy load of both roads, bridges. We have 2 bridges and a culvert pipe that are putting a lot of expense into 24, and we've added bike and hike trails. That provision is removed in 25, and we're back to more traditional levels. So in 25, we go up a bit more in debt service. We also start what we talked about earlier in the meeting. We start going up for the general fund, all of which is partially offset by the movements out of roads and bridges. And in 26, yet another small step for the general fund. Now let me move one slide over, it may become clearer. The next page is just loaded with numbers, but they're all ones that you've seen before. The millage chart is up on the top, so you can see how the real estate tax is allocated by fund, the general fund being on the top. The next 2 down, ambulance and fire tax, are pass-throughs that we do every year. There's no changes in there. Parks, we're carrying at 2.5 mils through here to cover parks operations, and the debt service line is where most of the action is occurring. We're going to go into that in a bit more detail. And here you can see roads and bridges. We tweaked it up slightly in 24, and we take it down by a full mil in 25. And it's you'll see from in a minute that we're fine with that millage. This is the line of millage changes. We would be proposing a real estate tax increase of 2.7 mils in 2024, just under 2 mils in 2025, and about a $0.5 mil in 2026. The third table down tells you where the bits and pieces are. This tells you that we didn't have a tax increase in 23, but we did millage reallocations. We took millage out of roads and bridges and put it other places. Here in 24, we're putting it back in again because he needs it. And we're also taking the debt service up by the amount that had been predicted for the community center projects. Up again slightly in 25, But here's where we start to climb for the general fund, because we need to get the general fund back into reasonable balance for the future. We slight tweak down of debt service. Now, debt service is where, as I said, is where the action is. So this chart at the bottom shows you how the millage is allocated among the different purposes. The top line, called admin building, is what the millage is that we're paying on this building we're sitting in right now. That's the bond refinancing that was done last year, and we're sitting here at about 2 mils a year. The column on the right is the 5-year average, so 2 mils. That's out, we pay it every year. We're also paying on the order of 0.6 of a mil for the second part of the loan for this building, plus for the Pebble Ridge, Woodridge curbs. So that's another 0.6 of a mil that is being paid year after year after year. Skip this, the center line is the community center projects. And as you can see, the first year, 2024, starts off below the predicted millage, but it ends up at 2.4, 2.3. These are the figures, not by an estimate, but these are the figures based on the bond sale. So this is actually what we expect to pay. The next line down, called capital projects borrowing, shows if we borrow $1 million in 2025, which is what we said we needed, we would need to pay 0.3 of a mil that year. We add another $500,000 in 26. That steps up to 0.4, and over the 5-year sequence, it ends up about $500,000. The $2 million that Ken showed you on the very first slide that we'll be borrowing for capital, that's what the stream looks like for those 3 years of borrowing. The last line down is also something we're already committed to, the Accelerated Roads Program. It runs about $1 million a year to pay back the loan we took out to complete the second tranche of roads this year. So lines 1, 2, and the last line are existing commitments. The community center projects is a new commitment that comes from the bond sale, and the line for capital projects borrowing is if a year from now, if the situation is the same, that's what we're predicting would be happening millage-wise at that time. So that is the explanation for debt service, and that's what the purposes of it are. So we're already spending a lot of money on debt service, and you can see that the community center projects represents about a third of it, what we already have. Okay, so that's.
Do we have any concerns about the ambulance and fire? I know there was concerns about us. Barbara, have you heard anything more about that? They were concerned about
Concerns about,
us all having to contribute more?
No, the ambulance actually has been doing very well.
Okay,
I'm
I was just
sorry.
curious.
I think
yeah.
it was to you, but
We
I.
haven't heard anything for
I
20.
I was
don't
just
mean-
curious
I
if there's,
didn't know if it was a question for me, I didn't hear it.
sorry,
Sorry.
yeah, I was just wondering if you had heard anything more about fire and ambulance, if there was any support they needed.
Okay, go ahead, Steph.
The ambulance, if you've seen some of their stuff that's been coming through lately, they have been doing much, much better. And so they were sort of concerned, but at this point in time, they seem to be okay. Nothing at this point in time has moved forward. I know there was a request for a study from DCED for the fire, volunteer fire, but I have not heard anything else from Doylestown Borough, who's taking the lead on that. I'm assuming the request has gone in, but we haven't been assigned anyone yet or any study underway. So that's probably several years in the
Yeah, it was a
offing.
couple years we went to that meeting. I was just curious.
Yeah.
If we needed a rainy day kind of thing, that's why. Okay.
all right, let's turn quickly to highlights on the expense
I have a real
side.
quick
Excuse me.
question, the bonds were issued. How did that go?
We got 33 bidders, and Janney Montgomery Scott came in at the lowest bid at 4.5%. We have a call date in 2029 as far as that is concerned. I talked to the financial, advisor, PFM, and they were very, very happy with the sale. And they indicated that, I thought it was interesting, over the total of 25 years, between the July example that they presented to us and what happened at the bond sale, we're going to save over $244,000 over the life of the loan.
Great.
So it came in very good.
Thank you.
That's good news.
So turning to the expense side, just an overview. These are the three biggest items in there. Wages, obviously, are at the top of the list, both on the uniform and the non-uniform side. Wages are going up about $400,000 year to year. The reasons are different, but different and similar. We have a new uniform contract this year. We also have 2 new positions that have been proposed. They are included in here in their year 1 value. I would caution you to don't get used to this value, because these are 2 officers coming in the first year, and they're on a step program that will move them up rather substantially. So, and lastly, the position for expanded scope on the clerical side. And the non-uniform side, we do have new employees that have been requested. We have positions we had approved for this year, some of which we filled, some not. But we also have a full year of hires that did come in this year who will be in 24 for the full year, as opposed to 3 months or 4 months. So these and of course there's increases for the employees in here also. The second item, pension payments rise to $1.8 million in 24. I think that's up, about 100,000 or so. We are following the PAC recommendation, and we expect to get to the 6% discount rate level by 26. And when we get to it, and you'll see in a minute, the payments level out somewhere in the $2.2 million range, which is, we've come a long way in the last 5 years from where we were and what we're paying in. Lastly, medical insurance premiums are up slightly. There's increased population. There's also a better plan, so it's a little bit mixed in the way it came out, but the increases we had in the basic rates was 3.9%. I want to end up from a highlights point of view by showing you what the result of all this is. I always like to go to the answer sheet. So this is your famous answer sheet, which is the fund balances presented both graphically and in numbers. But we always draw our eye to the blue box in the upper right-hand side. That's the value of fund balance for the general fund in the last year of measurement. And as you will remember, this year we proposed a 3-year measurement, and we proposed a range of 15 to 20%. And this plan that you're about to look at achieves 16.5%. The other fund balances, as you can see, are shown there. Roads and bridges. You saw we were tweaking millages up and down, but you can see that the values are reasonable. All of these other fund balances are what we need them to be. In debt service in particular, we need to have enough money in that at the beginning of each year to make the first 4 months of debt service payments, which is something we didn't quite follow properly in the past. You'll see there's a red number there in 22. We came out with a fund balance that looked negative, and we have had some struggles this year to get the debt service covered properly, but we do have it covered at this point. So these fund balances are all healthy, and when you look at the total thing, they're okay too. So this is the overview, and where we would go from here then is into the package we just handed you, and we can walk through that to your heart's content or discontent, whichever it is.
Okay, good job. Any questions? From anybody? Any questions from out there? What's off-site? Off-site? You want to explain that, Dave Tomko, what off-site is?
Why don't you take that?
Actually,
It's funds that we have at off-site funds. that-
Actually, Kathy, the offsite fund are contributions when a developer comes in and they provide offsite, instead of improvements, they do contributions to the township.
Right, and some of it can go to trails, it can come to some kind of recreation projects, that sort of thing. Yeah, yeah.
Are they all dedicated towards park and rec projects at this point?
That is separate. Park and Rec has their own when we do, there is a Park and Rec contribution. It's in the zoning ordinance at 1880 a lot. For example, for, say, a development of 10 homes, they would give, if they don't provide the appropriate open space associated with it to be dedicated, they would do that 1880 a lot.
Okay.
And that has to be used for Park and Rec.
Right. And the reason I asked was the Park and Rec Committee did that comprehensive plan of all the parks. So I was just wondering how that was going to start to fall into play eventually, or is all that money going to be going towards this Central Park project for a while, and those other parks will,
Some will go to the
because nothing's
park
on here. That's why I was
improvement.
asking about
Yeah.
the trails. By doing all the trails, the other parks
Right.
don't get, I think there was a pavilion at one.
No, I think
yeah.
it's balanced. I mean, there's other
Right.
things in the out years that we're bringing in,
Right.
and projects from Park and Rec. And, that money, right now is, some of that is being set aside for the, Park Recreation Improvement Project. And then in outer years, we'll be able to do the various other projects. And we've used that money in the past too. Let's not
Yeah, they did a
forget
great
that's
job.
been-
That's why I was just
Yeah.
asking about that project.
Right, but, we don't have as much residential development where we end up with that
And
right
that-
now.
And that was my last question, is when I was going through my paperwork and cleaning out, back in like 20 or 21, you had given us like a sort of a breakdown to the supervisors of sort of what was coming, once they file, what's in the pike, just so we knew. That would be awesome.
Did we? Yeah, I mean.
You
we-
had done it, but you kept it like.
Yeah, most
the
of it
big,
came
the
in-
big,
the
the
big
big
ones.
three, yeah, the
Yeah.
big ones, but I'm sure there's
Yeah,
other
total. And a lot of them will
pockets.
pay it all, like Toll Brothers contributed all theirs in one fell swoop. A lot of times, they come in when they do their building permit, so then it
Right.
becomes a slower
Right,
process.
so like Doyle's on Walk is done, basically.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay, I was just curious, because, yeah.
Yeah.
Just so that you know, this is a topic offsite that we discuss in Ways and Means Committee meetings and now finance as well, as how money comes in, how long it's been, and those type. So, again, it's the
Right.
budget meeting, but this is part of our process.
Right. I just had found that at one point Stephanie had provided it for us. That's why I was just referencing something you had given us in the past.
Actually, if I could, as far as new police or new officers, 2 new officers, and the assumption is that they will be brought in at the bottom of the scale is how I
Yeah,
would say
they're
it.
patrol
But-
officers that
But there's
come in.
no guarantee that we'll find them for the bottom of the scale, so.
They've
No, they-
been hired, Haven't they been
No,
hired?
no, they haven't. They haven't.
Sorry, we have hired, there's 2.
It's a 5-year scale.
But it's
Yeah,
under
they
the
start.
contract.
Okay,
contract.
okay.
Contract
It's,
requirement.
that's what I didn't know. Thank you. Because of lots of reasons, I wanted to ask that question. And I think you've addressed this, but my mind might have been drifting. The medical insurance premiums, 3.9, is that after the rate stabilization taken in?
3.9% is the rate change year to year. We still apply rate stabilization on top of that.
Okay.
And a multi-trust discount. So
Thank
all of that is baked in. The rate stabilization discount is lower this year because we don't have as much left in that
Well, which
area
makes
as we had
perfect
before.
sense. And
Yeah.
anyway, that's the reason why I wanted to ask about that. Thanks.
But there's
so much.
multiple things changing, medical costs.
Of course, there are. There's,
Obviously,
people are, employees, number of employees, what their type of insurance they're taking. I just,
Right, and we actually did a whole big change last year where we went to the high deductible plan, the PPO high deductible for everybody. So we saved a lot of money last year, if you might remember. We talked
I
about
don't, and we probably did, but
Yeah,
thank you.
that's fine.
Yes,
I wanted
that was
to make sure
beautiful,
it
yes.
was noted. It
And
was
that's a
significant,
great
yeah.
thing to mention at a budget meeting.
Yeah, if you go back into the back of the, what we just handed out, the fringes page will give you the breakout year to year,
I was just trying to hit the high points.
third of the way
Well,
down.
Thank you.
Medical insurance.
Any other questions before we garner some kind of consensus on,
Yeah, if
Having
if you'd
staff-
like to go through in any of this, we can do it or not, whatever you choose. It's up to you.
well, we're talking about 2024.
Yes.
Okay. We've talked about the expenses, capital projects, we talked about the revenue. Any questions about either? Okay, what's the consensus of the board with regards to approving preliminarily the numbers, expenses that we've, and the revenues we've seen here to authorize the finance department to prepare the 2024 budget?
And we're just looking for kind of a consensus.
A consensus. I just
no-
said
yeah.
consensus.
Okay,
We don't
thank
need a
you.
vote.
Yeah.
My feeling is that they should go ahead with the numbers presented in 2024 for the budget preparation. Yeah, I agree. Okay. Yes? Sure. Yes, Jen?
Yeah,
Jen?
can't think of any changes to make.
Nancy?
I
Yes,
don't
no?
have any changes, unfortunately.
Okay, okay, so that's a consensus, yes? Build the
consensus.
budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, good job, everyone.
Yeah, hard work.
Thank you. Thank you, Finance Committee, for all the work you do all year long that culminates in this assistance.
You're welcome.
help. Okay, is there anything else on the agenda for the budget?
There is not.
No, all right.
We don't have anything, we
We're
actually,
adjourned.
and we do have pizza for the board and
There's
our
pizza